So I'm also in the sort of behaviorally focused crowd, and I'm really thinking about behavior and policy impact. What the agenda says is I talk about China, which I will, and that will be behavior and measuring policy impact. But having heard what these guys say, and this is the beauty of having no slides, you can just say whatever you want, I'm going to put in another topic of work that I've done, which is really, in a way, behavior and thinking about predicting policy impact or the need for policy. One of the slide that was widest in previous studies, in Mark's slide, was income. So one of the studies that I'd done with a colleague before in Pakistan was a study of stove adoption, fuel use in Pakistan. And you see these studies, and in a way, this is in a poor setting. And there's a lot of people who are poor and going to remain poor. On the other hand, we do think there's this thing called an energy ladder, right? As people get richer, they do seem to switch how they produce their energy. So at a certain level of income change, you think that it appears that people actually do decide to adopt. So what level of income is that? And for those people who study environmental Kuznets curves, this question of does development dependently change environmental quality, this question comes in as well. And it's not totally obvious at all what income will do, because the people with higher socioeconomic status are indeed more willing to pay for environmental quality. On the other hand, they consume more, right? So if you think of a poor household getting richer, it might be thinking environmental quality. It also might think, I'm cold, it's dark in here, and I'd like to cook more, right? So those things say, when I get richer, I'm going to use more and more fuel. And if I stay with the dirty fuel, like if I stay with wood, and I get richer, all I do is emit more. At the same time, I'm more willing to pay for environmental quality. So as I get richer, maybe I'll switch to a cleaner fuel, and for a given level of consumption, I'll emit less. So which way does it go? It's not obvious at all. When does that trade-off occur? Why is this behavior in predicting policy impact? Depending on what you think the pace of development is going to be, you think some of this change is going to happen anyway, just through developmental change. And you want to think about integrating your environmental / conservation / the many things like health that you can get with your development policy. So in our study, for instance, we saw there are quite a few households who get richer and stick with the dirty fuel and just get dirtier. There are quite a few who switch and get clean. On the whole, we actually saw flat emissions as income went along. That's going to be specific to any given place. But just to push, at the more macro level, we also want to think about behavior and the need for policy as a way of predicting policy impact. What were the people going to do anyway if you didn't intervene, as a baseline for thinking about what's the need for and the impact of policy. So that's the slide in the old study, which means I will be shorter on the second one. So the phrase, what would people have done anyway if you didn't intervene, is the critical phrase for our next study on China. So there, I was quite struck by, and Subrendu flagged this, there's a lot of literature out there that doesn't seem to worry that much about what drives behavior. And I think in general, this space is a wonderful one for integrating technology understanding and behavior understanding. That's what I think the one great benefit in the energy space of interdisciplinary work is. So here's an example of how you can get something completely wrong if you don't think about behavior. That's essentially why we wrote this paper. We're working with Kirk Smith, who's one of these sort of leading stove folks. And he had this big, gigantic data set for China, which didn't have all the characteristics he wanted for other reasons. But it has 3,000 households. That's a lot of households, actually. You think if you're going out surveying one by one, that takes a long time to do. It's quite costly to pull off a survey like that. So he's got it, and he says, geez, what can you learn from this? And we thought, wow, that's a lot of households, including over a wide swath of China. So here's the two things. If you run an analysis that, you have to decide whether this is typical or not of the literature. Here's two things you can see. Improved biomass stoves have no benefit over traditional biomass stoves. And the second thing you see is coal stoves make you healthier than traditional biomass stoves. And you look at that and you think, really? But that is what you would get looking at this data. So we thought, okay, there's something going on here. And well, how did the stoves get out there? And then we find out there's a bunch of Chinese stove programs that were targeted to get different stoves in different places, including to promote coal stoves. Why? If you're worried about people cutting down forests on slopes and erosion into big rivers, you might actually want to get them into coal stoves. So the new shiny stoves are promoted for a totally different reason. And then go into a given county, and who do you think adopts new shiny stoves? Is it the poorest people or people with a little more cash on hand? It's the richer people. And the richer people, by the way, are healthier people. So suddenly you think, you know what? This is not coal stoves make you healthier. This is healthier people get coal stoves. So what we did is, and then you think, geez, it's not, so let me just break down. There was two pieces of behavior there. One was, what does the government do when they target their program here? Some stoves were targeted to poor people. Some stoves were targeted to places where there's erosion problems. Got nothing to do with health, right? Two, what do individuals do when faced with the offer of a stove? Rich people tend to adopt things that are capital intensive more than poor. So two kinds of behavior. So it's actually, it really confused us for a while, because when we ran these regressions, we thought, wait, poorer get the stoves, no, richer get the stoves. And it turned out it was all about were we controlling for which county you were in, because the government was sending different kinds of stoves to different counties. So the point of the paper is, you got to be careful about where these interventions go. In backing out, what would these people have done anyway? They would have done exceptionally different things in the absence of policy. Controlling for those things, we found, in fact, improved biomass stoves do have health benefits over traditional biomass stoves. And we can't actually find benefits over coal, but all those alleged benefits of coal for health, they go away. So this is just a push for, in a space where there's a lot of technology knowledge, but plenty of people do behavior too. The integration is quite nice. In this case, a story of behavior matters for thinking long run about policy impact and for measuring policy impact when you think about both what did government do and two, what do households do when you try to back out what are the impacts of energy policies in this space. All right, thanks.